So, I want to talk about what is actually required in order to live a multi-hyphenate, multifaceted life where you get to express and exist in all of these different creative multitudes that live inside of you. When we really think about some of the just iconic, legendary creative people, the Solanges, the Issa Raes, the Quinta Brunsons, the Pharrells, it's really not often revealed like what is the step-by-step that these people are doing in order to get them to this place where you can exist across these many different interests and still pay your bills at the end of the day. As I've been kind of like navigating this career where I'm just like making this up as I go, like I couldn't be more clearer about that. Like I don't know what I'm doing any more than anyone else. But as I've been like navigating how to balance my creative dreams with also the desire to be paid for my creative talent and build things that allow me to have creative ownership and create some kind of like legacy for myself, I have realized that there's kind of these three key parts to me that have really helped me navigate what building a life like this even is. And I call this framework dream like an artist, market like a creator, and scale like a founder without losing yourself along the way. Now, I think just listing all of these things out, probably when you hear it, it might trigger something in you that says like, why do I have to do all of these things? I just want to be a creative person. I just want to get paid for existing. Why do I have to figure out how to balance both being the artist and being a business person? Look, you can decide not to want to deal with the business part of your craft, but that business part is going to deal with you regardless. There's so many of us that know that we want to do these like prolific creative things, but we're not also being honest about the fact that anything you want to create, it's going to cost money. And you're going to need an audience of people to either experience it, support it, or share it in order for you to then be able to sustain yourself. So even if you're someone that's like, I don't want to learn how to market like a creator, I don't want to run my creative life like a founder, you still are going to have to figure out how your creativity and your understanding of how to run a business are going to come together, because otherwise you'll just be making a lot of stuff and not really ever seeing a return that will help you sustain your dreams. And what I really think about the people who are like my creative muses and like the people that I'm like, I'm trying to get like her, they're all business people. They're all managing multiple different ideas and businesses and projects. And that is how they've been able to build a life that allows them to sustain themselves. And then I also want to break down like, who is this framework for? Because I personally believe that not everybody is meant to be a multi-hyphenate. I feel like it is a very attractive thing to want right now because everyone wants this idea of like, wake up, do something different. I can be a different person. I can work on a different thing. And at the end of the day, I'm still able to support myself. It is a very like glamorous, aspiration of how to live a life, especially in today's age. But I do think that there are some people who really do only want to do one thing. Or there's some people who are like, I want to do this thing for like my main job, and then I want to do maybe this little side hustle on the side. But like everybody doesn't have to force themselves to think about how to maintain all of these different careers. I think that this advice is really for the people who have kind of always been doing this, right? Like you were the person that was in like 50 extracurricular things in school. You were the person that like when you had to sit down and think about a career, like you were easily thinking about 4 different ones because you were equally as passionate about all of these things. I also think that this advice is for the artists who know that they see a future where they are also dibbling and dabbling in other kinds of business projects down the line. Because no matter what we say about just wanting to be the artist without thinking about business, most of the artists that are really kind of like killing it in the game, they all have a portfolio of businesses underneath them. I think someone like a Beyonce or a Rihanna is a perfect example of this, whereas music and their craft as a performer is what kind of brought them into the game and what gave them the ability to branch out to become, honestly, serial entrepreneurs. But the thing that really sustains them and allows them to keep creating the way that they want to create is finding ways to spread themselves across these multiple identities. For those of us that don't have the backing or the money of a Beyonce or a Rihanna, I have kind of created a way that we can still dive into what it takes to approach life in this way, while also being honest about the fact that like we don't have a team of thousands of people helping us, right? We don't have these big budgets that are just going to pay for everything that we need. So how do we start thinking as the creative person, as a person that needs to also think about building an audience and a community, and also as a person that needs to not only come up with the idea, but execute it and scale it in a way that the next time you try to do the same thing, it isn't as hard. So first, I'm going to start with dreaming like an artist, because I think this is the easiest entry point for many of us, because this is the part that really comes without like grueling work, right? A lot of us who are born as artists, like creating is easy for us. We get lost in creating. We can sit for hours writing something, producing something, creating something visual. Like that is where our natural inclination comes from. And I really think in this space of like understanding the artist's mind and really spending time with that is where we derive all of our passion to do anything else. When we are really locked into who we are as artists, we're thinking about not only what we want to create for ourselves, but we're thinking about how we want it to impact other people. This is a very like community-centered frame of mind where the art, at least I believe it should come from this place. It's not just about us. It's about the message. It's about how we want it to be interacted with. And it is a very, very slow process. It's a sensitive process. This is the part that we don't want to show everybody. We don't want everyone to see the multiple drafts and the journal entries and the different takes it took to get to the final product, right? And I think that this is really the most precious part of who we are as multi-hyphenate people. It is the like very beginning stages, probably when you were like a super little kid, when you first identified with who you are as an artist and what you want to say and what comes easiest for you. And this is the part that I am like also super, super protective of, is my artist mind. But this is also where I get so much of my meaning and my inspiration and my drive to keep going from. And when I'm really like in my artist bag and like really, really like feeling it, I think of people like Solange, because she is just so cool. She is like the artist of all artists. I also think of people like Jill Scott, like people who just really embody this process of making the work mean something. With the artist's mind, with this just being one part of this like multiple way that we have to think, I think the common tension comes from, as an artist, again, you don't want to let everybody in. There's a lot of this work that feels very sacred and feels very precious, especially if it's not finished. And so we tend to have a big issue with like, how do I take my work and share it in a way that allows me to build a community without putting this constant pressure on me to have to create it every single day? My biggest challenge is that for music, which is my primary art, like I don't want to wake up every day, write a song and post it on social media. For me, and I've tried that, for me, it feels exhaustive. It's not fun. I don't enjoy it. There are some people who really do enjoy creating that way, but I don't. And so what I've had to really learn is like, how do I protect my artist self? How do I protect the work that is heftier, that takes a lot more of my time, but still find a way to build community online so that when I do share these pieces, they are finding someone that would really appreciate it. I think what I have learned to approach this tension is that you cannot get so caught up in being a perfectionist that you don't let anyone into your process. When I think about a good example of this, I have to come back to Ryan Coogler and the movie Sinners, the iconic movie Sinners, because I think that he gave such a good example on how you let people into your process without infringing on the day-to-day process of making the work real. Like when I saw him break down the different ways they shot Sinners, all of the behind the scenes content, like him really breaking down like the different cameras they use and the different ways you should view the film, whether you're going to a regular movie experience or to an IMAX experience. Like, it really like gave insight into the fact that this man is not only a creative genius, right? But like, he's also a teacher, and he like allowed us to be a student with his process. Having that visibility into your craft does not necessarily mean letting people in every single step of the way, but it does mean saying like, as important as it is to share this thing, the process behind it is also equally important. And how do I make space for both without infringing on my own integrity in the thing that I'm making? And so I think as artists, we also have to remember that like, there is no such thing as perfection. And you do have to find some kind of balance on how you let people into what you're building so that they can help support you at the end of the day. Right after the artist's mind is where I want to talk about marketing like a creator, because I feel like this is where we start to get into this tension around how we live and express these multifaceted lives. There are a lot of artists, there are a lot of people who come from creative backgrounds who are immediately intimidated by this word creator or content creation. The idea of like learning to be a creator, learning to make content tends to make a lot of us lock up and be like, oh, that's not me. I would never want to do that. I'm gonna just let them do that over there. But I want to challenge that tension by saying that even when social media didn't exist, right? I'm dating myself, but this is what, like pre-2010 or something like that. Artists, creative people, we have always had a responsibility of sharing our work to an audience of people. There was never a time where if you're creating something and you want to do it at a professional level, you don't have to form some kind of relationship with the public. Now, back in the day, we had maybe like more traditional like modes to do it, whether that be through print or through radio or through, TV appearances or working with a publicist or all of these things. But needless to say, the way that we make space to talk about our work, talk about our process, promote our work has always been a part of the responsibility of doing creative work professionally. Something that I like to say to myself to kind of like reframe the pressures that social media has become is like, I see social media as a tool. I'm not trying to be a content creator. I'm trying to use the tool of content creation to kind of fill that gap of how I'm building a relationship with the people that I want to experience my work. I was always going to be doing that in some way at some point, because if you're anything like me, like I grew up dreaming about being a musician at the level of like a Beyonce, at the level of a Michael Jackson, at the level of these like greats that I would watch on my TV, and they would have all of these fans. I came into the art of wanting to be a musician, understanding that I'm going to be in front of people performing. I'm going to have to talk to a lot of people at any given time. It is both a part of my job and my dream to not only be creative, but to also figure out how I'm communicating my creativity to the masses. When I think about like marketing like a creator, I think about how a lot of like popular content creators have used this ability of like not always having a big project to push or not always having this big thing they're trying to sell, but really bringing you into their story in between those moments so that you still feel engaged with what they're building. And it's less about like having to do everything that's a trend or making everything look like super aesthetically pleasing and like everybody else's stuff. And it's more about like, okay, it takes me months, sometimes years, to really put together a solid body of work that I'm proud of. And if it takes me that long, then how am I maintaining a relationship with the people who want to support my work in between those times? And I think about content in that space. The creator mind is also the space where we have to confront our issues with visibility. This is where we have to get comfortable with being a little bit imperfect. This is where we have to get comfortable with like really thinking from the mindset of our community or our future fans and trying to figure out like, how do I show myself in an authentic way? How do I let people into my work without giving too much of myself away? Like, I really care about shaping my content around the things that I'm building versus like come with me. This is my day-to-day, all of that kind of stuff, because quite honestly, my day-to-day is not really that exciting, if I'm being honest. And so I think that that really is where we can start crafting our own perspective around how we want these different vehicles around content to serve us. It's not necessarily about, oh, you need to be posting 50 videos a day. It's more about like, okay, if you know that you have some kind of project that's coming down the line 6 months from now, what seeds can we plant today that help prepare your audience for where you want to go? How do we get people maybe signed up to your mailing list so that whenever this project drops, like they get the link immediately? How do we kind of like shape this persona around who you are and why you are doing the work that you're doing through content? Because another thing we have to think about is like, I don't know about you, I can't afford no publicist. Okay, I can't afford someone to like run a PR campaign for me. I don't have a team that's specifically behind, my artistry and my personal brand that can like pull all of these levers to get me in the door. And while social media or like managing a persona or creating content feels heavy, it also is a cost-effective way for me to make sure that my story is still getting out there, and also that I'm in charge of this story and I have like autonomy over the people that I'm inviting to sit at my table, versus like being at the mercy of like someone else who is pushing me and pulling me wherever they think I should be placed. It's really all about perspective in terms of like how we get comfortable with operating in the creator mind. The big tension of like sitting in this mindset is that, again, knowing the balance between, being relatable and still wanting to maintain some kind of privacy, right? Knowing when you don't have to lean into every single trend and every single thing just for the sake of visibility, just for the sake of going viral. It's also about like sometimes, and this happens to me all the time, usually the thing that's going to go viral for you is the thing that you were not even trying to go viral, right? And usually when that happens online, a lot of us feel like, okay, I need to make 50 more videos just like this video because this is clearly the thing that the people love me for. This is the thing that's getting the most engagement. Something that I have to remind myself of is like, what do I want to be known for? If this piece of content that's gone viral, if I'm okay with more content like this going, reaching people and them only knowing me for that kind of content, if I'm good with that, then I'll lean into making more content like that. But if it was just like a once in a lifetime random moment that happened to be caught on camera and it happened to really like hit with the audience, I'm not going to be doing more of that content just for the sake of getting that kind of engagement, right? Like I am always thinking about like, what is my story? What do I want people to understand about me, even if they only saw one piece of content from me on the internet? What is that thing? And I'm always working towards making quality content around those things versus quantity. I think that this is really important when we think about like how, as independent, up and coming, underdog artists that are already trying to build a name for ourselves, how are we going to have a say in who is in our community? And that is how I think about creating content. And that is also how I think about marketing as a whole. You cannot operate as an artist. You cannot operate as a creative person with big dreams without trying to understand marketing. It is just what comes with the work. And then lastly, the third part of this framework, which is a newer part for me, that I call scaling like a founder. Because when you really think about the work of creativity and building these like independent creative brands, we are all walking businesses, right? Like we are both the business and the founder. We are constantly like inhabiting these many different like parts of what it takes to run and sustain a business, oftentimes without really thinking of ourselves as founders or as entrepreneurs. But if you are an artist, if you have been operating professionally as an artist, you are a founder, you are an entrepreneur, you are whatever business title you want to put on it, but that is what you are. One of the things that really helped me really lean into the power of sometimes operating as a founder is thinking about scaling things. I am both an artist, a singer-songwriter, producer, and I also run my own media company. And as both an artist that has a creative business, all of these things are always coming into play for me all of the time, because creativity is one of those like things that like it isn't really a product, right? It's not something that's on a shelf. It is a very like complex thing to enter the business world with. And a lot of times it's also hard to think about like the cost of the work that you're doing. We often are just like, I'm gonna just pay my own money, bootstrap it to get this project together, to put this event together, to make this business real. And then we also don't know how to calculate like what should the return be on the work that we're doing. And something that was always really hard for me as an artist is this idea of like, well, what should my return be? If I'm an up and coming artist, like I don't really have this big fan base, I'm still spending thousands of dollars to make my music and to get my art out there, but like, it's not like I'm making thousands of dollars back. So how do I like scale my process so that it gets easier or it becomes a little bit more profitable for me every time that I'm doing it? I think that the thing that has like really helped me not only like fund the things that I want to do more creatively is to really understanding the layers and the things that you need to run a creative business, because it is not enough to just have a great idea. It's also not enough in today's day and age to just have a big following behind your creative idea. Like you have to understand execution and project management and how to build a budget and how to talk to sponsors and how to talk to investors and how to like translate your artsy passion, desire, vision to someone that's like sitting in a boardroom in a suit that's like, okay, so why should I care about this? Like, what is your proof that people are going to want to buy this thing or support this thing? As much as I never saw myself being this like, you know, corporate minded girl from like a creative space, I realized that like as my business grew, as my presence grew, and even as like my work experience grew, I was being put in these rooms where I had to think about these things and I had to talk to people this way. When we lean into our ability to lead creatively as founders, this is where we're able to make the hard decisions, right? Like we can't be like, oh, I just want to do this thing because I really love it and I'm really passionate about it. Like sometimes we have to take a step back from our most beloved ideas and say, maybe I need to do this next year. Maybe like, let me take a beat. Let me reach out to some partners that I know, some of my friends that work in different areas. Let me see if they can connect me with someone that can make this happen a little bit easier. This is where we say things like, okay, who do I need on this team to make this project happen? Who do I need on this team so that this idea can actually come to life? This is also where we have to get realistic about the fact that not everyone around you that wants to work with you is actually good for you. Not everyone that says like, yeah, I can manage your career. Yeah, like I can manage, you know, the content that you make. Yeah, like I can take over this part of your business. I can deal with your accounting. I can do all of this. This is where you learn how to hold those people accountable. This is where you learn how to hire people and how to fire people. There is no point in however you envision your career going for you where you won't need this skill. Even if you are someone, again, who's like, at the end of the day, I just want to be able to wake up, do my art, and go back to sleep. You still need to be able to have the acumen to sit in a weekly meeting, a monthly meeting, understanding what are things costing, what is coming back into me, what is it going to cost for us to do this project in a few months? You know, what is the flow of traffic to this thing? How is our community, you know, engaging with what we're doing in a way that we can understand like the metrics, and not in a way that like makes you feel like you can't do the things that you want to do at the end of the day, but in a way that helps you, again, like scale it so that there is a flow, so that every time you want to sit down and create something, market it, sell it, whatever the case may be, you have a process and an understanding so that we're not constantly having to learn lessons the hard way. Because most creatives, we learn business lessons after we've been fucked over, right? Like we learn about a contract once we didn't read it. We learn about like not to say yes to certain deals once we've dealt with the consequences of what that deal feels like. But when we are able to tap into the fact that we are founders, that we are entrepreneurs, that we are business leaders, it not only helps us lead in a better way, but it also shows us where the gaps are, and it helps us learn what we need to learn so that these are not just one-off ideas, but they also are building something that we can have creative ownership over. But there is also a tension with being too deep in the founder mind, right? And this is something that I'm learning actively every single day. I think as a founder, a lot of times it's a lot harder to admit when you don't know something. It's harder to have questions or to feel like it's okay to have questions. And then sometimes when you get too focused on, where's the money coming from? What are the metrics? What's performing? It does make it hard to like remember your why and remember like who you're trying to serve. Remember like what inspired you to do this thing in the first place. For the founder mind, I think the solve really is like remembering what is the drive underneath all of these things. Like for me, any business or any idea that I create is all grounded in my love for being an artist and my love for writing and my love for working with community. Like all of those things is my why. Even when things don't work out the way that I would like them to, even when I go broke launching ideas, even when, I try to put on these big business initiatives that like just don't go the way that I want them to go, I'm always reminded again of like, what am I trying to do? What is my message? What is the thing that I'm trying to make real? And why am I trying to make that thing real? Now that we have an understanding of these like 3 different parts that comes with doing this work, one of my favorite parts is really realizing that like these are not 3 separate identities that you have to embody. They're more so just kind of like 3 different parts of you that are always going to be working together to make all of this come true. Like we need the part of ourselves that can just spend hours daydreaming and visioning and making the big artsy idea come to life, right? We need the part of us that understands how to not just have the idea, but how to communicate it to an audience, how to keep a relationship with this audience, how to find super fans within this audience so that we're able to deliver the work to the people that it is meant to serve. And then we also have to think about what is the longevity of this? How do we scale this so that every time we try to do a project, the system is a little bit easier? We have a better team around us. We are making this a little bit more profitable every time we do it. And we're creating creative ownership at the end of the day because again, that is like the biggest piece out of all of this is not just creating the idea and giving it away to people, but like, how do we make sure that we're actually building something that we can own and then gives us even more sustainability at the end of the day? This is how I am dreaming like an artist, marketing like a creator, and scaling like a founder to make sure that this hefty, out of this world dream of trying to inhabit many parts of my creative desires are actually coming true. And if you want to dive into this just a little bit more, you can read this piece in full on my Substack, Growing Through It, under the same title. And I am also on all socials as @TheKayanova, where I am constantly talking about this journey and building this multi-hyphenate career as both an artist and the founder of a media company. Hope this was helpful and good luck as you build across these different parts of yourself. And thanks for listening.